Indianapolis, Indiana resident Erica Cook Schreck contracted COVID-19 back in April. Now 7 months later, she's still reeling from the effects of the virus. Erica says while she will never know for sure where she contracted it, she believes it was while doing the simple, everyday task of grocery shopping. So then tell me when you first got COVID-19 and how you believe you contracted the virus.
I will never know for sure how I contracted it. My best guess is that it was at a store that I had gone to. This was April 1st would have been the day that I contracted it, and at that point a lot of things were shut down, and so we were only going out for essentials. We were being very careful, but I did go to one store, and I believe that's where I got it. So April 5th, I started feeling just very sick, as if I had a chest cold. And that lasted about a week. And at that point, I could not get a test. They had limited tests, and they were only for healthcare workers at that point in time. So I went through my quarantine or isolation period of about 10 days without knowing for sure whether I had COVID. During the second week is when I started getting the shortness of breath that you hear about, and when things started to get really bad and really scary. So at that point we knew, based on the symptoms, that was what I had. And it was a long time, probably 2 to 3 months, that I could barely even walk to the bathroom. I was very, very sick, and basically spent 3 to 4 months completely in bed, almost 24 hours a day. Things are better now. I'm improving, but we don't know whether I will ever recover fully. They're figuring this out along with us, especially with long haulers, and so nobody has promised me anything about how much better I will get.
Erica is now known as a COVID-19 long hauler, someone who is still showing symptoms of the virus long after they last tested negative. Both scientists and doctors say it's just too early to say what serious health problems could lie ahead for those who find it difficult to get over the virus and what damage it could do to the human body. Erica said she's currently wearing a heart monitor to look at heart issues which she said were never present before. While she believes she should have gone to the hospital when she first contracted the virus, she didn't because it was not recommended at the time. And so then how bad did things get?
Very, very scary. It was an experience, and I've said this many times, I would not wish this experience on my worst enemy. The nights that I spent struggling to breathe, afraid to fall asleep because I didn't know if I would wake up. And I went through all of that at home. At that point, very early in the pandemic, they were really discouraging people from going to the hospital. I should have gone, and I would have been admitted to the hospital had I gone. But I didn't. I was afraid and didn't really understand what was the right thing to do.
And so how scary is that for you you don't know what the future holds. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, not to mention 6 months from now, a year from now. That must be incredibly terrifying for you, not knowing if you'll ever feel the way you did before you had the virus.
It is very scary, and I think especially early on, I spent months in my bedroom, and I have windows that look out on the street, and I would look out the window and look down the street at a stop sign. It's about maybe 5 houses down the street, and I would just wonder, will I ever be able to walk there again? And it seemed impossible for so long that I would ever even be able to walk to that stop sign. And so it's just been very discouraging, not having answers and not knowing what the future holds for the illness. And I think on top of that, dealing with knowing that there are people who aren't taking the virus seriously, who don't think it's a big deal. All of that put together has been really stressful.
COVID-19 will be a hot pressing issue on the minds of American voters as they head to the polls. With President Donald Trump downplaying the severity of the virus, Erica says that played a deciding factor for her when she voted by absentee ballot.
I wouldn't say that it changed my decision. It didn't change who I would have voted for, but certainly watching the way things have played out, seeing how the current administration has dealt with the pandemic has been endlessly frustrating and discouraging. And hearing the things that have come out of the president's mouth about the virus, trying to minimize it, trying to tell people that everything is fine, declaring, that his administration has ended the pandemic. It's just not true. And it's very frustrating and scary. The things that he has said, the things that people have believed, that he said about the virus. So certainly that has definitely played into my feelings about the election and my voting, for sure.
Erica admits that she feels no leader could have been fully prepared for a virus of this magnitude. However, believes if different decisions would have been made earlier on, lives could have been saved.
Who knows where we might be if different decisions had been made early on. And I think even more important to me is, more important than the early decisions is, as time has gone on, his tune has not changed. And the president continues to talk like the pandemic is just not a big deal and shouldn't be at the forefront of everyone's minds, and is encouraging people to be bored with it and to move on with their lives. Well, I can't move on with my life. And right now we are at an all-time high of new daily cases in the country, in my state, and in my city. And that's the case in the majority of the country right now. It has never been worse than it is right now. So it is frustrating and infuriating, honestly, to hear things being said that just aren't true, and to hear people being encouraged to make decisions that are not just putting themselves at risk, but putting their neighbors.
Now, Erica says she would not wish the virus on her worst enemy, saying it's a terrible and terrifying ordeal to go through, saying the scariest part is not knowing how serious your symptoms could get. Now she's sharing her story in hopes it will encourage others to do their part and follow all the proper safety precautions to ensure themselves or someone else does not get sick. Now, Erica is known as a COVID-19 long hauler, which means she's still showing symptoms of having the virus even after testing negative, but there are signs of improvement. Erica says she hopes that by this time next year, she will be back to where she was before contracting COVID-19. Charlie CNAC TVYN News.